What's up, guys? It's Sam Hooper here with the Institute for Justice. It's going to be a busy week, and I want to give you a rundown of some of the things that I'm going to be working on this cold January morning. So this week, the Texas legislative session is going to kick off. So this only happens once every 2 years. It's a part-time legislature. The first thing they have to do is choose a Speaker of the House. No one knows who it's going to be yet. And until we know that, really, we don't know anything else. We don't know who's going to be committee chairs. We don't know the fate of certain bills. We don't know entirely what the priority is going to be. So although there's lots of good pro-liberty, limited government legislation that we would love to see enacted in Texas, we really need to wait to see what the outcome of the Speaker's race is in the Texas House before we can do much more. Beyond that, though, there's a lot going on. So in the state of Kentucky, where I got to visit last year for a conference, there's going to be a bill on eminent domain reform. Kentucky is one of those lagging states that after the egregious Supreme Court case of Kelo versus City of New London, when lots of states changed their laws to make it harder for local governments to abuse their eminent domain power, Kentucky unfortunately didn't go as far as other states in reforming that. So it's still too easy in Kentucky to eminent domain, to take people's property for reasons that aren't necessarily a strict public use, to abuse the definition of the word blight, to take and then just knock down properties that are perfectly habitable, perfectly serviceable, but just might not look the way that certain local officials want them to look. So we're going to hopefully have a good bill in Kentucky that reforms eminent domain law, bring it more into line with best practice in other states. Also in Kentucky, there's a potential bill that would reform qualified immunity, which we're very passionate about. So this is giving people a potential civil remedy when people acting under color of law, state official, abuses your constitutional rights, when they have no right to do so, when they're infringing on your liberty, your speech perhaps as well. Then this will give you a recourse that you can take to both hopefully get an injunction to stop them from doing that again, and to get compensation as well when your rights are violated, which at the moment is all too difficult because of the federal doctrine of qualified immunity. So that's Kentucky. Moving back across to Texas, we're in a coalition called Texans for Reasonable Solutions that's working on housing reform, a big deal in Texas. House prices are too high, and even though Texas is leading the country in building new houses, there's still a long way to go, and unfortunately it's just not keeping up. It's putting upward pressure on house prices and just making it too difficult for a lot of people to get housing. And the housing that is built tends to be in places where you have to drive a long way to get anywhere. It's those kind of very car-dependent sprawl that concretes over the countryside, rather than building the kind of dense, affordable housing of all different types that people need where they actually want to live. So we've got lots of different bills that we're going to hopefully file in Texas. We're going to tackle this in various ways, both reducing minimum lot size for greenfield developments, making it easier to convert former offices into residential units, which is great, particularly when there's unleased offices that can be easily converted. A bill that would make it easier to build those kind of mixed-use commercial residential zones that are really popular and that we see in so much of the rest of the world. And then another bill as well, reforming valid petition, making it harder for certain neighbors to block any kind of upzoning that will make it easier for property owners to do more that they want with their property. So more going on in Texas as well. In New York, we also have a potential qualified immunity bill that we're excited about. In Oklahoma, there's a really egregious law at the moment that means if you want to sell funeral caskets, then you can only do that in the state of Oklahoma if you're a fully licensed funeral director. Even if you don't do anything else concerned with the funeral, you're not providing any wraparound service, you're just providing a casket, you still need to get a full funeral director license. And they enforce that very strictly, and they will come down on you like a ton of bricks if you try and do that. And we have friends of IJ, a company, a husband and father owner of a company called Caskets of Honor. All they do is they make beautiful custom funeral caskets. They particularly specialize in making caskets for fallen veterans, for deceased veterans, for firefighters, for police. But really anyone that wants a special casket, that's other than the kind of standard caskets that you can buy, then they will make you a beautiful casket. At the moment, they have to go through this ridiculous process of doing these transactions and selling those caskets from Texas back into Oklahoma, because they can't sell just within Oklahoma because they're not licensed funeral directors. And why should they have to be? All they do is make caskets. So we're looking at a bill that would try and break the stranglehold of the Oklahoma Funeral Board, which loves to persecute people that they see as encroaching on their monopoly. And we think hopefully we've got a good chance of success this year. So as you can see, I'm working on a whole range of different things. Also Fresh Start reform potentially in Utah. make it easy for people with old past criminal records to be able to get back into licensed occupations once they've paid their debt to society and they're ready to go back to work. These people might have had, old convictions from 20 years ago, maybe. They've completely turned their lives around, become upstanding citizens, but because they have this past record, they're not able to become maybe a licensed social worker, a drug and alcohol counselor, a beautician, a cosmetologist, a barber. It could be any number of things, right? And this it locks people out of working. It doesn't help recidivism, because if you can't work, then you're more than likely to go back to a life of crime. And it's just generally bad, and there's no reason. So we're looking for a bill that would make it much harder for licensing boards to stop you from working unless they can prove there's a very specific link between the kind of crime that you committed and the field that you're working in as well. So really trying to tighten that connection, so they can't just stop people from entering a profession because of something completely unrelated they did before they turned their lives around many years ago. So as you can see, I'm going to be busy. I'm going to be working remotely, talking with people in lots of different states, and that's just me. I have other colleagues in our IJ legislative team that are going to be busy working as well on different states. So it's great hearing about what they're going to be up to this week. If you're in a state capital, then you'll probably see me at some point coming to testify for a bill, to lobby for a bill potentially, to try and persuade local state legislators and activists of good, pro-liberty, small government legislation that can improve property rights, economic liberty, free speech, and education freedom. So that's a taste of what I'm up to this week. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the comments. I love nerding out about legislative law, so I'd love to hear any questions you might have, and I look forward to giving you another update soon.